Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's time to look into the future. We're going to plant our flags and call some futures. We're talking team stuff, player stuff, awards, all of it for the upcoming NFL season, because this is BP NFL, and that's how we roll. And I never roll without my homies, Andrew Erickson, the Undertaker, and Terrell Furman Jr., and we are going to get out there today, and we are going to give some love to some wagers that you should be placing this NFL season, and make sure you are placing those wagers using the Betting Pros app. Download the app, sync your sports books today, and start betting smarter, not harder. Please use the tools. We have the talent, we have the tools to make you successful in wagering, because it's tough out there in the wagering streets, and we want you to be armed with the sword of truth, just like they did in that Warcraft episode of South Park, one of my all-time favorites. You need the sword of truth to go out there and start taking down some big-time bets, and we are going to jump right in with 2 feet, as we always do, to the show, and we are going to start with some team futures. We're going to look into the future with Andrew Erickson, and we're going to start with the Bengals. Andrew, you like the Bengals to win the AFC North. The numbers plus 165. Let's go.
But before the Bengals, Leroy Jenkins, let's go. Bengals to win the AFC North. Look, every year we see a team finish bottom in their division, and then they end up winning the division the next season. For me, that's clearly going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. Burrow, this squad is going to face one of the easiest strength of schedules in the NFL this year after finishing fourth in the AFC North last season. It's a good thing that the Steelers and Browns won so many games, because it's setting the Cincinnati Bengals up for a cakewalk schedule. Week 1, Patriots. Oh no, what are they going to do? Jamar Chase probably doesn't even need to play for them to win that game. But basically what you're looking at is they have the 6th easiest schedule this year compared to the most difficult schedule in the NFL last season. No team has a larger gap in terms of schedule strength this year than the Cincinnati Bengals do. And when I look at their biggest opponent, the Baltimore Ravens, I think the Ravens last year, that was their year. It was really all set up for them, and they ended up coming up just short against the Kansas City Chiefs. So for me, I'm looking at a healthy Joe Burrow. He's looked ready to go through all the reports from training camp. This is one of his first regular off seasons where he's not dealing with an injury or COVID or this or that. He's good to go. So once we get Jamar Chase back in the building, get him signed, I really think that there's nothing stopping the Cincinnati Bengals team. I think their offense is going to be better with the more weapons that they have. T. Higgins, they drafted really well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I just love the Cincinnati Bengals. I love getting them at value here to win the AFC North with one of the easiest schedules. So I'm really pushing my chips in on the Cincinnati Bengals this year.
I'm rooting for them, but I still think it's the Ravens to lose. I like the Ravens defense, and I love the Derrick Henry addition. But in my heart, I'm with you, Erickson, on the Bengals to win the North. Speaking of the North, not in the AFC, but in the NFC, Terrell Furman, he's going with the pack. That's right. Forget the Lions, which is, of course, everyone knows already my Super Bowl pick, my pick to not only win the NFC, but also win this division. But you think those young kids in Green Bay have a shot to win it at plus 230. It's a pretty good number. Terrell, break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is really just more of a fade of the Lions, and I don't think the Lions are going to be the exact same team they were last year. I think a couple of things really went their way. They were 5-3 in close games last year's, and so that +2 advantage, we typically see teams come down from that because they play, hey, a couple of the ball doesn't roll their way, a call doesn't go their way. So it's a little bit of regression for that Lions group, but also this Packers team shored up this defense. Hopefully they bring in they brought in a new defensive coordinator. They put a lot of attention in the defense in the offseason to make them credible. And then I believe in Jordan Love as a quarterback. I think Jordan Love can be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He sat his time. He did his due. And now he's getting that payday. He's getting that opportunity to really, really show it. They had a really, really good stretch of the season last year, except when they lost to my New York Football Giants. But, that's perfectly fine. That was the bottom. That's the bottom of what you were last season. And I think that how competitive they can be, how competitive this division is overall, because I think that every team can actually sneak every team in the NFC North, that a couple of things just have to not fall the Lions' way this year, and they can have a really good record and not win this division. So I like taking a plus money on the Packers to be able to get it done.
Andrew Erickson, your next team future has to do with a team that I think could well outperform in fantasy. It's the Arizona Cardinals. Their win total is 6.5 wins, and you are going over that. Now, it is minus 150, but I think you and I see this the same, which is Kyler Murray with Harrison and McBride with some capable backs there. Could be an offense that really could surprise a lot of people. And that is a low number, 6.5. So why do you think the Cardinals can go over it in 2024?
Well, when you look at Kyler Murray as a starter, he has a 43% winning percentage. And when you equate that to an 18-game season, that's just under 8 wins. So unless my math is incorrect, less than 8 is still more than 6.5. So
That
for
is
me,
true.
it's
wait. Let's check with Terrell. Is that
I
true?
did graduate
Yes.
middle
Okay.
school.
All right.
So
okay.
I
Now
think
you
I
can go
should
ahead.
be good. I just graduated middle school, by the way. Congrats to me. So
but you still eat the Lunchables. You still do it. I've seen you.
I love the little sandwiches. They're so adorable and delicious. So it's a bet on Kyler Murray, staying healthy. I think that when he's in this offense with all the extra pieces that they've added, and betting on the Cardinals too, I even kind of like their odds to win the division at plus 1,300. Those are crazy long odds, but I'm really fading the rest of this division. I think that the 49ers, they scream. They have Super Bowl hangover. They're already hungover. Look at how the 49ers offseason has gone. Half the team's not even there. Half the team's injured. We haven't even started playing games yet. So, Joe, I know you've brought up the Super Bowl hangover with the 49ers, so I'm fully buying into that. I think that they're going to regress, and that's going to be problematic, I think, even for fantasy potentially. So not high on them. You look at the Rams, another team that was very lucky in terms of their injury status last year, another team that's already banged up. Again, the games haven't even started yet. And then when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, they have question marks about their offensive line, which really crushed them last year. So I'm looking up, who's the number one teams in vibes in the NFC West? I'm going with Arizona. Arizona feels good, feels fun, feels plucky. And even last year with Jonathan Gannon, had nothing to play for, had a terrible roster. Those Cardinals games, they were playing their hearts out for Jonathan Gannon. They were forcing overs. Josh Dobbs just shows up and ends up being a quarterback that is fun to play and watch. So I think that they're going to rally around Gannon this season with Kyler Murray fully healthy, not entering the year with an injury. So I want to be above the market on Kyler Murray and this Arizona Cardinals team. And I think that going with the division first, but again, like I said, I like the long shot odds to win the division. Again, looking at Kyler Murray, the last time Murray started the majority of a season, 2021, 14 games, the team was 9-5. The team opened 7-1 under Murray before he had the ankle injury. So look, again, betting on health, it is football. It is tough, but as long as Kyler Murray's upright, I think the Cardinals are going to make some noise.
The Gannon comment to me is the one that really is astute and sticks out, because I think anybody who watched the Cardinals last year, you could tell the talent wasn't there, but the effort was unquestioned. The effort of the Arizona Cardinals last year, even in games where they were losing, you could see they weren't phoning it in. And I thought that was a very impressive thing and surprising, to tell you the truth. So he must have something going on. The next one here, Terrell, I've already bet this one, so I'm loving that you're in on this too. The Browns win total 8.5, and you are the under plus 115.
And it's so perfect. Shout out to our graphics team, honestly. The graphic, 100% perfect, because that look by Amari Cooper is exactly how I look at this Cleveland Browns team. I mean, just utter total disgust, because should you be better than what I'm projecting you to be? Absolutely. You do. You have the names, you have the talent, but now they just make questionable decision after questionable decision. They brought in Deshaun Watson. That hasn't gone the best so far. Hey, he won games when he was playing last year, but did he look the best in those games when he was playing? No, there was a lot of times where he was throwing balls into the dirt. He just kind of didn't get acclimated, and it was like, hey, he just needs time to get back into it. Well, he didn't get any time to get back into it because he went through a season-ending injury. So I think that now you look at this team and who they have to play. They get a really, really tough division with the Bengals, who we've already talked about already. We think they're in the lead to go ahead and win the division. You have the Ravens, who I think aren't going to slouch. And then you have Mike Tomlin, who constantly has a winning season. So somebody's got to lose games here. It just feels like the Browns are the odd team out. I question them offensively if all those pieces are going to work together. They still are going to try to work in Nick Chubb later on in the season, and that's going to throw off the chemistry of the team. Like, I just plus money for this Browns team, and I'm looking at their schedule, and I have maybe 6 games that I think they can for sure win. Everything else feels like a toss-up. I'm fading the Browns here under 8.5 wins. Maybe we sweat it and they get to 8, but I just can't see them getting to 9.
Yeah, this look from Amari Cooper in the graphics, like somebody took the last scoop of mac and cheese at the cookout right before him when he was online. He is not a happy camper. Not a happy camper at all in this photo. Let's get to the next one here. Pick number 3 here for Andrew Erickson. The Panthers to make the playoffs. Now, look, Andrew, I know you love the money here, plus 750, and you've been talking a lot about the Panthers this offseason. So in case somebody hasn't heard, give them the shtick once again on why you think the Panthers are in for a big turnaround from 23 to 24.
Well, for the record, Bryce Young is 1-0 against CJ Stroud. So just that is on the record. That did happen.
Yeah, that's
do not get it
definitely
wrong. The Panthers did beat the Houston Texans last year. But when it comes
Boy.
to the Carolina Panthers, I'm looking for value here in the NFC South, which I think we can all agree is probably the worst division in football. So I'm not looking at, the Saints. They have such an easy schedule. Oh, that's not going to work out. Atlanta. Who is their quarterback? Who is really going to be the guy coming out of the tunnel week one? Do they really think it's Kirk Cousins or is it Michael Penix? I get that the Falcons are favorites. They should be favorites. But, we see the teams that win the offseason look great on paper. Sometimes it doesn't always translate. And the Panthers are quietly putting together a very better roster than last year. Dave Canales. He has the Midas touch. The last two places he's been to. Rejuvenated Geno Smith. Brought Baker Mayfield back from the dead. I think that we're going to get a better product from the Carolina Panthers. Their defense was underrated last year, considering they were put in basically the worst single spot every single week. They allowed the fourth fewest yards per game last season. They had to do everything for that team last year. And when you look at the schedule, again, sharp football, 10 of the 15 teams with the easiest schedules made the playoffs last year, 67%. The Panthers have the 10th easiest schedule in the NFL in 2024. I already pointed out they play in one of the weakest divisions in the NFL and the NFC South. So again, I'm betting on the Bengals to be that team that goes from the bottom to the top. Why can't Carolina go from the bottom to the top when they should be a much improved roster from last year? Bryce Young entering year 2. I get people are frustrated. Why aren't they playing Bryce Young into the preseason? Well, maybe it's because they're going to shock the world, baby. And a plus 750, I'm here to help on the ride. Let's ride.
All right. Well, last time someone said let's ride, it didn't work out very well. But I hope your Panthers selection works out a little bit better here. Erickson Furman, close us out here with the future pick number 3 for you when it comes to the teams. Back to Mike Tomlin. I think someone mentioned before about Mike Tomlin always has winning seasons. 8.5 is the number plus 120. So I guess you're putting your money where Mike Tomlin is again.
I mean, I have no idea how they could give me plus money on a Steelers team that has not had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. Like this is comical. I understand why people are playing this because he just continues to get it done, and now he has the best quarterback that he's probably had in a little while. Like I don't think Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. I think that whole regime over there in Chicago did not believe in them. They didn't want to do this in the first place. They kind of got talked into it, and everything kind of pulled up the rug up under him, and now he goes somewhere where he feels wanted, he feels valued. I think he's going to be the starter. I think he's going to be really good for this Steelers team, and Mike Tomlin loves to win games that nobody expects. For him to go on the road as a dog, at home as a dog, and pull out these wins when nobody's expecting it. Plus, TJ Watt is healthy. If TJ Watt stays healthy for the entire season, their win total skyrockets with him in the game. So yeah, I like the Steelers to go over 8.5 wins.
All right, we're going to turn our attention now to player futures. So the guys gave you their 411 on the teams. Now it's time to look a little more individual side. And let's start with Jordan Love, a player that I am very high on this year in fantasy, very high in the wagering markets too. The number for passing yards, 3,825.5, minus 112. Andrew Erickson, you going over or under?
I'm going over. And this is weird because it's coming from The Undertaker.
Yeah,
I love the unders, but I think this number is just too low. So Jordan Love last year threw for nearly 4,200 yards, and that was with a bunch of rookies and second-year players. I love all the playmakers he has now. Another year under the system. It's Jordan Love's second season full-time as the starter. And for the last 5 seasons, the Packers QB1 has passed for more than 4,000 yards under Matt LaFleur. So I think Jordan Love, again, we're talking about him as a potential MVP candidate. I think he can easily get to 4,000 passing yards while putting him over the over here.
All right, let's go to the next one here. The Terrell player future, Joe Burrow to lead the league in passing touchdowns, plus 1,100. This feels like one that's definitely in this realm. Joe Burrow's got a lot to prove. And Terrell, you think that Joe Burrow's going to prove it in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when Joe Burrow's played a full season, he's been right here on this number. He's been 36 and 35 passing touchdowns. The 36 season, he lost to one Pat Mahomes, who had 41 passing touchdowns that season. And then the 35, he had a couple of guys ahead of him. Aaron Rodgers, we're expecting some regression there. Dak Prescott, you expect some regression there. Josh Allen, you expect some regression there. I think when you look at the list and you kind of pull away everybody that's back this season, it's clear cut Joe Burrow can step forward. I don't trust the run game. I don't think that they're going to trust Chase Brown or Zach Moss when they get really, really close to running in, but they constantly have Joe Burrow dump off to the tight ends. Joe Burrow, even in the pass game, he might be able to cook something up with Chase Brown. Joe Burrow has been able to do it with Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is still there. Like, this is still a really, really good offense. And so I think Joe Burrow 100% has the potential to lead the league in passing with some 35, 36, 37 passing touchdowns. So I think Joe Burrow at 11-1, it feels really, really good. And just another way to bet a guy that I think is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year.
More on Joe Burrow later in the program. Our next take, I think, is a spicy one. Erickson, Trevor Lawrence to lead the league in passing yards, plus 2,500. So you're putting him ahead of guys like Patrick Mahomes, who just 2 years ago had 5,000. You really think that Lawrence can get that number all the way up into what, that 4,800 range? Because that's probably what's going to take to win this thing.
Well, he plays in the AFC South, which I am labeling the shootout division with the Colts, Texans, and Titans, 2 dome teams. Am I worried about the Jaguars defense is going to stop these offenses? No. And what did they add during the offseason? Brian Thomas Jr., first-round pick, scored 17 touchdowns last year for LSU. Big play threat. They added Gabe Davis, another big play threat. They're going to attack the ball downfield. In this dink and dunk era, when we cover 2, the one team that's really not doing it is the Jaguars. They want to attack aggressively downfield. That's why they added guys like Gabe Davis, like Brian Thomas Jr. Looking at last year, the Jaguars offense, Lawrence specifically, was first in expected passing yards per game. He ranked 5th in passing attempts per game, 9th in passing yards per game. And that was with the caveat of all the drop passes, all the Calvin Ridley drops. So if we get receivers that are actually squeezing the ball and they're throwing as much as they did last year, well, I think that in these offensive environments, I think Lawrence at plus 25-1 odds, I think he's going to be up there with leading the NFL in passing yards. So I love the value here because I think he's going to be at least in the contention when it's all said and done.
All right, so Trevor Lawrence, the case is being made to have a big season. Terrell Furman, you're making a case also for Will Levis to have a big passing total season, over 4,000 passing yards for him, plus 380. Now, it does feel like Levis might be a little fast and loose this year with the football. Is that your logic here when you're looking at this over?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what they wanted to do when they brought in Bryce Callahan and Nick Holtz to this offensive system is, hey, we want to go airmail things out. Everybody remembers that first game Will Levis had where he threw 4 touchdowns. So they bring in the coaching staff. They get him the weapons and adding a Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to play week 1 from all indications. I think that's a really, really good wide receiving core for you to have as a young quarterback in Will Levis that you can just kind of air the ball downfield, be able to play the PPR short passing game as well with those receivers and just continue to rack up yards. And then he's got Chig Okonkwo, one of my personal favorite tight ends in the league. So I think that he has the weapons, he has the options. They have the scheme where they want to continuously give him the ball to air it out. And they're not scared of the interceptions. If he throws an interception, that's fine because he could throw a 75-yard bomb the next drive. So yeah, I 100% think that they're going to give Will Levis every opportunity to succeed. 4,000 passing yards plus 380. I think he's easily a 4,000-yard passer. In fact, last season he was on pace in a 17-game pace to have nearly 4,000 passing yards, 3,842 to be exact. So I think that this is a really, really good value for plus 380.
Erickson, going back to the Jaguars, if you think Lawrence is going to have an explosive season, then why not Brian Thomas to lead rookies in receiving yards? Now, I think you're way off the reservation in this one, but I can't wait to hear it. I love the number, plus 1,600. So sell me on why Brian Thomas is the guy and not Marvin Harrison and not Malik Neighbors or some of the other big names in this rookie wide receiver class.
Well, I'm not arguing with you that those guys should be favored. You know, that makes sense. They're going to be bigger pillars in their offenses, but I think Brian Thomas Jr.'s value and what his role is being underrated. He's a full-time player in this offense from day one. We've seen it already in the preseason. He's running out there in 2 wide receiver sets across the field from Gabe Davis. What do we know about Gabe Davis? The guy doesn't command targets. He's never had 100 targets in a season. So if it's Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, an injured Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and then another backup tight end on the field, where's Trevor Lawrence going to throw the ball to? He's going to throw it to his uber-talented first-round pick from LSU, Brian Thomas Jr. Last year, Brian Thomas Jr. was super productive alongside another player that you just mentioned, Malik Neighbors. And looking at Jacksonville, their offense, nearly 200 vacated targets from this offense from last year between Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley last year saw nearly 1,800 air yards. And when you look at what rookie receivers have done when they've gotten at least 100 targets, they've almost always finished at least top 3 in terms of rookie receiving yards. So if Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be inside the top 3, I'm going to take those odds at 16-1 and hope that, hey, guys get hurt. What if Harrison misses a game? What if Malik Neighbors? What if Daniel Jones is really that bad and it can't function? For me, I think that the volume is going to be there. The talent is there. And that's why I like the bet at 16-1.
Now, Terrell Furman, you're a Giants fan for a very long time, and that has been a rough go in the last couple of years. You've had some peaks, certainly some valleys too, but you are looking at Daniel Jones, I think, as a very realistic Giants fan. You're looking at that interception number, and it's 8.5. Where do you stand with that one with Daniel Jones? And at least maybe you'll get some joy out of some of the maybe less than thrilling quarterback play from Jones.
I'm telling you what, right now, for the 28 years I've been on this earth, I've been a fan of the New York Football Giants. And for the 28 years I've been on this earth, I found a way to make money on the New York Giants in our good years and our bad years. It don't matter. I found a way to make money on us. And it could have been 25 cents on the playground telling them that I thought the New York Giants was going to win that week. But I'm going to find a way to make money on the New York Giants. And I'm trying to tell you right now, this is the way you make money on the New York Giants. Because honestly, truly, it doesn't matter what version of Daniel Jones I get. I'm getting a version of Daniel Jones that's going to throw 9 interceptions this season. It doesn't matter if he plays half the season, he can get to 9. If he plays a quarter of the season, I don't think a 9 is out of the question. Like, it really doesn't matter. They have told themselves that we got to figure out this year, is Daniel the guy or not? I already know he's not the guy. That's why I'm betting this prop. But because they need somebody else to verify that he's also not the guy, I'm just going to benefit from it and make money. Because Daniel Jones absolutely is a turnover machine. He underthrows balls. He's very inaccurate. He doesn't push the ball downfield, which is his best thing. And then when he does, again, he underthrows the ball sometimes. So it's really, really frustrating. I think he's going to force feed targets to Malik Neighbors. And that's going to be one of the things that kind of hurts him on the interceptions aspect. But then what also goes our way is he's not afraid to throw an interception. He threw 2 of them in his first preseason game. Like, come on. Even money. I'm not even going to sweat this past week 10. I'm really not. By week 10, he'll have 9 interceptions.
All right, let's switch gears, everybody, and let's look to the awards. We'll start with MVP. Your selection here, Andrew Erickson, Joe Burrow at plus 1,000. Talk to me.
So the MVP award comes down to 2 simple principles. It's the best quarterback of the team with the best record. So for me, I'm looking at the Bengals. I already talked about how much I love them this year. You look at what they had in terms of their win totals projected last year was 11.5. It's 10.5 this year. So up there with all the other offensive juggernauts in the AFC and NFC. And you look at Joe Burrow over his healthy, fully seasons, 65% win rate over those last 3 years when he's been fully healthy. So I think that this team, given how easy their schedule is, they can rack up a ton of W's. I like the fact that they've improved the depth at wide receiver and at the offensive line. Terrell already talked about how he likes the touchdown props with Joe Burrow. And the question mark obviously comes down to Jamar Chase a little bit. Is Jamar Chase going to show up? But to me, it almost kind of works in Burrow's favor where, wow, week 1 against the Patriots, Joe Burrow throws 5 touchdowns against the Patriots and Jamar Chase isn't even playing. What's that going to do to his stock? It's going to make it go to the moon. So I think Burrow really has a chance to put the NFL on notice after he really broke out so early. It's been a while because he's been dealing with injuries and the Bengals haven't had the best luck. But we've seen this guy go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and come out as a winner more often than not. So there's not that many quarterbacks that can do that. He plays in the AFC, so he's going to get a chance to go toe-to-toe with all the top AFC quarterbacks. And if he comes out on top, he's going to win the MVP. So for me, that's where I'm putting my money on Joe Burrow.
Terrell, you went even deeper for MVP. Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts plus 3,500.
Yeah, because if I'm going to take a long shot, I'm going to take it. And this could be one of those Lamar Jackson type seasons where Anthony Richardson comes out of nowhere and lights the world on fire. And I absolutely want parts of it. Like, he can do it on the ground. He can do it on the air. And he has the weapons. Like, I really do like this Colts offense. I think Shane Steichen is a brilliant mind. And he can put together an offense that highlights everything Anthony Richardson does right. He did it with Gardner Minshew. I think that Anthony Richardson is by far a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. So at 35-1, I'm 100% taking a little sprinkle. But I will admit, Erickson, we are holding hands with Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a really good bet at MVP.
I agree. Make it 3 for 3 on the Joe Burrow one, but I kind of like where you're at too. Maybe just planting a seed in the Richardson MVP bucket, see if it grows over a couple weeks. You can always cash out in some places too. I love to bet two guys, usually a favorite and a long shot too, or somebody that's a little bit further down the trough. I usually bet Mahomes and somebody else. Maybe it'll be Burrow this year too. We'll see how it goes. Next on our list is the offensive player of the year. Last year, Christian McCaffrey took this one down, despite the fact Tyreek Hill was leading that for most of the season on the betting board. But let's talk about Waddle. There's a big number here for you, Erickson. What do you got?
So you talked about how Tyreek Hill was going to win this award last year.
True.
Because usually that's what's kind of been going on. It's the last 3 of the last 5 seasons. The winner of the NFL Offensive Player of the Year has been a wide receiver that led the NFL in receiving yards. It took Derrick Henry rushing for 2,000 yards, and then last year McCaffrey won it because Tyreek Hill got hurt. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. That's what happened. So I'm looking at who has the longest shot odds to lead the NFL in wide receiver yards or receiving yards overall. And Jaylen Waddle sticks out to me like a sore thumb because he plays on the exact offense that was generating the guy that was going to lead the NFL in receiving yards last season. Tyreek Hill is older. What if he takes a step back? Does anybody have any reservations about how good Jaylen Waddle could be if he was the number one in this Dolphins offense, or if Tyreek Hill were to suffer an injury, take a step back at his age? We saw what Jaylen Waddle did against the New York Jets in the one game that Tyreek Hill missed, and he lit them up against one of the best secondaries in the NFL. And we look at just where his odds are placed. So he ranks 30th in terms of his wide receiver odds to win Offensive Player of the Year, despite the fact that he ranks top 10 in receiving yards per game over the last 2 seasons. So chaos happens. Why did Puka Nacua get so many receiving yards last year? Because Cooper Kupp didn't play the entire season. So I know you can look at this number and think, oh, that's crazy. This could never happen. Well, if Tyreek Hill misses a couple of games, where is this number going? What if Jaylen Waddle starts the season on absolute heater? Then his odds are going to drastically change. So 150 to 1 for a guy that ranks top 10 in the NFL in receiving yards per game over the last 2 seasons. Sign me up.
I actually like where you're at here with this, Erickson. I think this is actually a pretty fun one. I love Waddle, but that's the path. The path is it has to be an injury, right? That has to happen.
But injuries happen. We know that. We just don't know when and where, but we know they're going to happen. So at 150 to 1 odds,
and somebody did get the bag last couple weeks ago, didn't they? Tyreek Hill did get the bag. So, sometimes those guys like to play through injuries. Sometimes they don't.
Injury, so is Waddle.
All right, this one's a good one too. Offensive Player of the Year, Bijan Robinson. Terrell, that's your pick. Plus 2,000. Talk to me.
Yeah, Bijan Robinson is going to get all of the work in this Falcons offense. I think that he's able to do so much in turn, and it's kind of Christian McCaffrey-like in terms of how he's able to run the ball, how he's able to be a receiver as well. You look at what he did last season, and he was the running back with the most snaps in the slot. He was second most snaps out wide. He lines up all over this formation, and he plays a whole bunch of different roles. So, hey, what if Bijan has 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards? I think that's something that could be in the realm of possibility for him. And so I think that the offensive workload that he's going to get when they realize that Drake London and Kyle Pitts are still not the options for this offense is going to be insane. So I'm 100% with Bijan Robinson.
Moving on to the next market. Defensive Player of the Year. You've heard Erickson and myself talk about the expected sack total last year of Hutchinson. He's a plus 1,600. This typically goes to the guy with the most sacks. Hutchinson here, another year into the league. Erickson, I think you and I are really in lockstep here. Why do you think he could be Defensive Player of the Year, in this season?
He was second in total pressures last season, but ranked 18th in sack production. That does not make sense. That's not going to happen this year. He is going to get sacks playing on a team that has 14 of 17 games indoors, all shootouts. Hutchinson is going to get 20 plus sacks this season. This is my highest confidence futures bet that we've talked about on the show today. And it's about a defensive player. So, which feels very weird coming from the fantasy football space, but hey, I play in one IDP league. I IDP. So AIdan Hutchinson, to me, I just think he is so set up to have an absolute monster season. And like you said at the top, who gets the most sacks? And the thing with Hutchinson, too, is he's a player that voters are going to vote for. They voted for him his rookie year when he was solid. He's a top 3 overall draft pick. He plays on a team that everybody seems to be in love with except Terrell, the Detroit Lions. So I just think that this is the best bet. Again, when I was at a bachelor party this past weekend, staying up late, drinking some beers, I was raving about AIdan Hutchinson and why you should bet him to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's who I was talking about. I'm a fantasy guy. And I was raving about AIdan Hutchinson of all players. So that's my favorite bet.
I like it too. I'm in on it. Of course, if you don't like it, there's one that's a little bit higher up on the board with a little bit more of a track record for competing for this bad boy. It's TJ Watt. Terrell, that's where you're landing at plus 750.
Oh, he's so due. Talk about a player that's due for defensive player of the year because and I talk about the voters a lot. I think the voters love him, but they love TJ Watt. And the fact that they couldn't and they did not give it to him last year and they gave it to Myles Garrett, I think that's going to resonate a little bit more when he has another one of those 20 sack seasons. Like when TJ Watt is healthy, he's one of the best defensive players in the league. Like is very clear and obvious. I think that this feels really, really chalky for me to go with TJ Watt, but I just can't imagine it being anybody else with how much the voters have for him, how much he means to this defense, the fact that he flies off the page whenever this defense is going on, and the level of sacks that he's able to get, and it doesn't matter what matchup. So TJ Watt's just been so consistent to me that I think that he's due for multiple defensive player of the years, and he gets the second one this year.
All right, let's move on here to the rookies real quick. We'll do the defensive rookie of the year. And Erickson, you've got Byron Murphy on your list at 12-1.
Yeah, defensive tackle for the Seattle Seahawks. And he was a player that I viewed as the best defender overall in this draft class. I was betting him to be the first defender off the board. That didn't end up working out, but I made my money back because the Falcons drafted Michael Penix instead. Thank you, Atlanta Falcons. For me, he's already checking off the boxes of an absolute monster. In the preseason game against the Chargers, this guy's getting double teamed. He's getting Aaron Donald comps already. So I love Byron Murphy. I love him as a prospect. And the way that he's positioned in this Seahawks defense, it's the same role under Mike McDonald that we saw Justin Madubuike in last year. Madubuike had 14 sacks this past season under McDonald in Baltimore. And that was the most of any defensive tackle in 2023. So in an overall lackluster defensive class where there is no superstar per se, I think this is where I want to go off the board a little bit. Usually it's an edge rusher, sometimes a corner, but mostly an edge rusher. I want to attack the interior defender with Byron Murphy because I think that he could generate a ton of sacks and be a big difference maker for that Seahawks defense in year one.
Terrell, where are you going for your Defensive Rookie of the Year award?
Speak for yourself when you say it's not as deep talent and all that. Shout out to my guy Latu, because guess what happened to him in his very first preseason game? He got double teamed and chipped. Like every single time he was getting double teamed or he was getting chipped, they were finding other ways to make sure he wasn't in the backfield. And you can't do that with DeForest Buckner. You can't do that with Kwity Paye on that defensive line as well. So I think that the best ability for him is the fact that he has so many other good pass rushers that he can kind of get one-on-one matchups and eat and rack up stacks. So yeah, I love Latu. I think he's a very, very good chalk play for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
All right, let's go to the Offensive Rookie of the Year, one that you guys see eye to eye on. Erickson, give me your take on Jayden Daniels at 6-1 first.
Rinse and repeat. The last time we saw Cliff Kingsbury have a rookie quarterback that was drafted in the first round inside, it worked out inside the top 5. It was Kyler Murray, and he beat out 1,000-yard rusher Josh Jacobs. He beat out 1,000-yard receiver rookie A.J. Brown. Look, it's still a quarterback-driven award, in my opinion. We saw last year, Puka Nacua was breaking records left and right. He completely was dusted by C.J. Stroud. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even a competition. So I'm going with, especially in a class that was so talented at the quarterback position, I get Caleb Williams as the favorite, but Jayden Daniels, I think if he's the reason why this Commanders team can move on from being a laughingstock and being taken seriously. And it's because of Jayden Daniels. So given the additional rushing juice that he offers and the amount of touchdowns he could put up individually for him specifically with the receivers he has at his disposal, I'm going to go with Jayden Daniels.
And Terrell, your take
Ditto.
on Jayden Daniels. Let's go. Besides ditto, give me a little bit more than ditto. Come on, baby.
I mean, that's really it. Is ditto. The value is there at 6-1.
Yeah,
opposed to Caleb Williams. Like it's really there. If Caleb Williams were maybe a better price, I might be interested that way. And maybe I look for something with Williams live and maybe he starts slow, but you got to play Jayden Daniels here at 6-1.
All right, it's time for the big one, folks. It's time to get some Super Bowl predictions before we close out today. Erickson, let's go. What do you have? Give me your Super Bowl and your winner before the season kicks off here officially in just a few weeks.
Going with the animals. Bengals versus Lions. Lions versus Tigers. But the Tigers come out on top. Bengals win. Plus 1,500 to win the Super Bowl. Let's go.
Terrell, I have the Lions and Chiefs. I'm the perfect intermediate here in between you guys because you've got the Chiefs making it to the Super Bowl against the Packers, another team from the NFC North, and you've got the Chiefs winning at 6-1. Talk to me.
Yeah, I like what the Packers did last year and how they were able to go in there and win a playoff game. I like the experience. I think they're going to be a lot better team, but I mean, he's the GOAT, and so he ain't the GOAT no more. And you got to beat him, and everybody has to go through Kansas City if they want a Super Bowl.
There you have it, everybody. Those are the picks for the future when it comes to the NFL, and the guys have thrown it down, but we want to hear from you. You give us your picks. Drop your comments below. Let us know what you think. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Terrell, Furman, and Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.